to the Parenting for Faith podcast. My name is Jess.
And my name's Anna.
If you are new here, you are so welcome. Parenting for Faith exists to encourage and equip parents and carers to be the primary spiritual influence in their child or teenager's life. And every week we release a podcast, so it's great to have you here.
This is our first week back after half term. I hope if you're in the UK and have school-age children that you had a great half term. I was at Lee Abbey with some of you doing a Parenting for Faith week, which was amazing. So if you've joined us because you went on the Grandparenting for Faith week or the Parenting for Faith week, you are so welcome. And we're really excited to continue that journey with you.
And we've got some news for you, things that we're doing that we'd love to share with you. So on Thursday, this Thursday, the 4th of June, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, if you're listening to it afterwards, you've missed it. But don't worry, these are all recorded. On Thursday, we are busy. Becky, one of our members of our team, is speaking at the Talking Toddlers webinar with the Evangelical Alliance about what it means for grandparents to be involved in the faith of children and young people. We are speaking at the Church Support Hub for the Church of England, and we're going to be talking about how Parenting for Faith approach can transform your church and your family. And so all the details of that will be in our show notes. But if you've missed it live, don't worry, they're all recorded.
Hooray for recordings. And hooray for doing things online. There is no way we would be able to do that in one day normally. So that is great. It's also a big week for us in that Friday is the official launch of BRF Online. You've probably heard us talking about it. You have hopefully got the app downloaded onto your phone or tablet or looked it up in the browser. But we had a bit of a soft launch. So you keen fans, the people who listen to the podcast, have had a little bit of an inside look. But it's time to tell the world about it now. So do make the most of that. Make sure you've got it downloaded. Share it with someone else. All the Parenting for Faith content is going to be on there. And we have got loads of really exciting new stuff coming out. The Grandparenting for Faith course is going to go on there as well. And the brand new 5 Key Tools course, which we are doing in September, is going to be on there too. So make sure that you're signed up and you'll get all the new stuff.
Fantastic. And today we're going to talk about church, aren't we?
Are we?
We are. Fancy that. A bunch of Christians talking about church. I don't know about you, but as soon as I became a parent, church became like this different experience. It sort of just became a service where I needed to keep my child really quiet. Or when they got big enough to go into a group, it was, let's see how long it takes me to drop them off. But church is should be more than just trying to survive an hour and a half with your children. It's this really amazing training ground where we can teach our children how to notice God, notice people meeting with God, and noticing like what the community of church is all about.
Yeah, definitely. You've probably heard us say it before, but as parents and carers, we want to be tour guides, not taxi drivers. The taxi driver mentality is like, let's get them to church. Let's maybe with the right clothes on. That's just clearly a battle in my house at the moment, but like with some semi-sensible attire at the right time so we're not too late so we can park. Try and not super annoy anyone on the way. And then they will get to their group or get in the service and receive all the God stuff and learn about God and get to know him. And church is brilliant. There's so much stuff you can do in church, and that's what we're unpacking today. But it's not, getting them there is not the point. We are all about everyday life and every moment. And church can be such a powerful and such an important part of that. But it's not the main event and the big deal that's all about getting them there. I posted a reel a couple of weeks ago. I'd had a horrible morning in church, to be honest. My child was just not having it. And I was struggling to work out how to cope with that and how to manage it. And I got so much love from you guys being like, me too, I've been there, I know what that's like, or I see other people. And so I do want to start this with a bit of a caveat that for some of you, church is really difficult. And for some of you, you don't go to church or you can't go to church. And that might be because of where you live. It might be to do with additional needs or medical needs for you or your child. It might be a life logistics thing. It might be that your child or teenager doesn't want to go and it's a real battleground. And we know that's a big deal. Or maybe they're with another parent or you don't live with them, all those kind of things. Just to say, we see you. We love you. We're here for you as well. This is not all about getting them to church. We know there are seasons of life or family situations which make that really difficult. But what we're saying is if you do go to church, whether that's every single week or occasionally, let's make the most of that opportunity. Let's see what we can to really like squeeze the most out of it, and do things kind of before church or during church or after church, or if you're having a great week with the wind behind you, all three, to just really make the most of that opportunity and enjoy it, and see our children thrive and see them grow in faith as part of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Anna, because that's really important, isn't it? We're not all in the same situation, and church does mean different things to different people. But we want to start with like the before church, like what happens before you get to church. And if your house is anything like my house, it's usually get out the door. We've got 10 minutes. We're late.
Where are your shoes?
Where are your shoes? No, you can't wear the princess dress. Well, you can. Or it's usually me, not being able to find my keys. Let's not blame my child. But we can create, as parents and carers, we can create this kind of like anticipation or excitement for what is actually going on in church, rather than just the practical element of physically getting bodies into a room. Instead of that conversation, we can start to add kind of like these phrases or questions of, oh, I wonder what God's going to do today in the church service. I wonder who God is going to point out to us who needs something today. What's the one person who we can connect with today? So that when you're approaching church, yes, there is that practical element of being on time, etc. But the expectation isn't that they have to behave, but it's that they're going in being curious and looking out for what God is doing, rather than communicating that there is a behavior that they need to have when they're at church. So what is God doing? God is with us at home, so let's assume that he's at church as well. What is God doing, and what part do we have to play in that on a Sunday in a service?
And something that's really helped me with this, because it can be hard in the where are your shoes, where are my keys kerfuffle to think of these things, is to think about what's important to your family and say the same thing every week, and like kind of as your default, unless you have something else. So my kids, you will hear an audible groan sometimes in the car on the way to church when I say, okay, and what are we looking out for today? And they're like, oh, anyone who's, looks on their own or lonely or needs a friend. Like, we're looking to see for anyone who's new or doesn't know what's going on, because part of our job is to make them feel loved and make them feel seen. And that will not be everyone's thing. That's just something I felt really strongly about a few years ago. And so I've really coached my kids in. And there are a million other things church is for and that we could do in church. But that's sort of become our thing that we remind ourselves of on the way to church. And if there's something else, then I go for something else. And I do it a little bit differently when we go to a different church service. So when we're in when you're like visiting someone else's and again, the kids get used to that. So we were going not too long ago to a service of nuns. We have a family member on my husband's side. And I knew it was going to be quite a different environment and service that they're used to. And before we'd even got seatbelts strapped in, they were like, we know what you're going to say. Have a look around. Notice what's the same, what's different. What do you have questions about? How are people worshipping? Like, how are they connecting with God? What do you understand? What do you not understand? And it's just kind of prepping them for, okay, you're going to a little bit of a different environment. Let's see what we can notice. Let's see what's going on. And depending on the context, sometimes it's okay to ask about that in the moment. And you can tell them if there's something you don't understand and you want to whisper to me, that's fine. Or you can say, actually, in this church, it's quite quiet and there's not many people. Hold on to that thought. I'd really love to hear. I'm really interested. But we'll chat about it later, or whatever it might be. But just a little bit of framing that this isn't something just to get through, but we're wanting to notice how people are connecting with God and what that looks like for them.
And it doesn't always have to be connected to people, I guess, too. I'm just thinking of children who are quite physical in their body, for example. You can say, okay, how are we going to worship God with our body today when we're at church? What instrument are you going to pick if you have instruments? Or what part of the church should we stand in so that you can, I don't know, how you want to move your body today. Just thinking of different personalities, and you know your child or teenager the best. So some of these things will really resonate and some of them won't. But it's just a case of, trying to make them a little bit curious and having that conversation before.
And it's all using that key tool of framing. So at Parenting Faith, we have 5 key tools. Framing's one of them, which is just explaining what's going on and where God is and what life with him looks like. And all of this is part of framing what church is. If you want to dig into that more, session 8 of our original course is all about going into the Bible, looking at key passages, and we come out with 5 different values of church. And that might be something you want to look at. We'll pop a link so you can check that out. But it might be like we were saying, that you just focus on one for a very long time, or just for 1 week, or whatever it might be. But you're giving them a heads up. What can they look for? What can they notice? Even if they've been to church many times before, and we kind of often assume that kids know what's going on. And often they know how to behave. They know what's expected of them, but do they know what to look for? So things like saying people connect with God differently. So today you might see people being quiet or loud, people moving a lot, some people who are happy or sad. Have a look out for that. You know, they're connecting with God in different ways. Or when we're in church today, you might feel peaceful or bored or curious or distracted. Those things are all okay. That's all part of being a human and going to church. So set them up a little bit if you can. If you're super keen, like the night before, but realistically, probably as you're going out the door, or breakfast, maybe. You might hit it at breakfast.
Or as you're walking into church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you're there during the service, there are so many great like micro moments that you can talk with your child or teenager who will be next to you. One of the things that I really love to do, because I'm a people watcher, and so I'm training my child to be a people watcher too, is looking around the room during, if you've got any time of song worship, if that's with an organ or with a band or a choir or whatever, looking around at the rest of the congregation and asking questions like, ooh, like who, like what do you notice that they're worshipping? Who's the person that stands out to you? What do you think is happening? Or even narrating to them like, oh, they're lifting their hands, giving them some kind of context for that. And maybe even taking it a little bit further, saying, is there anybody in the room that you would like to kind of like copy in worship? And that's okay. Like, is there anything that you would like to do based on what you can see during the prayer time? That's always a great opportunity as well. What do you want to ask God? Kind of like coaching them on the way in the moment is really helpful. Or saying, how do you want to connect with God whilst people are praying? That can be particularly relevant if you've got a younger child and maybe following liturgy, or if there's words that are being said that need to be said on the screen. You can also just turn to your child and say, what should we thank God for this week? Just helping them in a context that maybe isn't super child friendly or kind of stops them from engaging. You can be that person to help them engage in whatever way that is.
Yeah, no, those are really great ideas. And I think you make a really good point about if they can't read, or reading is not their favorite thing, like maybe they're dyslexic, or it's just not fun, and the font is tricky and it moves quickly, or that's something that you can do to really help them engage. So I like to whisper, especially if there's a repeated bit, you know, this bit's coming up, this is all about how God is great. Do you want to just say God is great instead? Or kind of things that you can act out, almost like we're not an action song sort of church, but that song at the moment, I won't sing it, don't worry, but where it says, you lift me up, turn me around, set my feet on solid ground. Like, if I'm holding one of my children, we do that and talk about what's going on, because it's something physical they can feel and remember. And yeah, just kind of giving them a way to join in, because it must be really confusing and really frustrating actually if everyone else seems to know what's going on and you don't. So yeah, those are interesting kind of ideas for worship. I think too, during the sermon or during the talk, obviously some churches have separate provision for children. Some people do it all age, every week or some weeks, but often you might have a child or young person who's in a 30-minute auditory talk and they're not used to processing information in that way. Truthfully, I don't think a lot of adults find that very easy either. But can you give them pen and paper to doodle? Can you give them one thing to hold on to? You know, just ask, did one idea make sense to you? Or can you listen for one interesting thing that you'd like to talk about afterwards? Can you kind of translate a concept if say the preacher uses an example about work or business, you know, can you think what that would look like in their school context and sort of translate it for them a little bit so that it makes sense?
Yeah. And literally the church service is a room full of windows. So one of our other key tools is creating windows. So allowing children and teenagers to see into your own faith as a parent or carer, but you're literally stood with a whole bunch of people who are connecting with God in some way. And it's a great opportunity to point out and notice, or at least observe, and then have a conversation about what might be happening for people in that moment, so that children can see. So it's not necessarily always about the engagement part, but it's more about the, having a little nosy looking through a window.
And I think too, if you're feeling brave, do it loudly and not necessarily with your own children. I love in church, I'm often with like one of my kids or a godchild or, friends and people who would be okay with it. But I will hold whoever is nearest to me and say, hey, look, and literally point out, look what's going on. This person, we know the name of the person at the front. If they're reading a Bible, how people often start with, I was praying this morning and I felt this verse. I translate it to, they caught this from God. God's speaking to her. Isn't that exciting? And she's reading from the Bible, God's special book. You've got a Bible. And actually, I've noticed that people around you are quite interested and tend to listen in and sometimes copy that language with their kids as well. So don't worry that that's distracting for other people. I think often it's actually quite helpful.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to chuck in here that I have found transformative, and it's a Rachel Turner thing, is take your child somewhere where children are not normally invited. Now, let me caveat this. Not somewhere totally inappropriate, but if there's a prayer meeting or a church service that doesn't have children's provision and kind of separate things, or they're able to stay in the service rather than go to a group or something like that, occasionally, not all the time, take them so that they can see and you can point out what's going on. Because it's like this magical mystery. What do the adults do when we're not here? Or what does that look like? And give them some ownership and give them some, show them the purpose, what it looks like to be an adult Christian in this community, and that they are wanted and needed, and that they're welcome in that space. Obviously, there are some times where it may not be appropriate, and for me, like just as a logistics thing, I have 4 kids and Sundays it's always really crazy, and it does become just about management sometimes. And so I love taking one child, if we can figure it out with babysitting and stuff, one child or sometimes 2 to like an evening service, so that I can sit next to them and coach them and point stuff out in a way that just isn't possible when I am like calming the crazy on a Sunday morning. So that might be a fun thing to try if you've never tried it.
Yeah. And I was also thinking, children and teenagers take in so much than we ever think. And so not to underestimate them just being present in a room where they're listening to something. Like I've been in rooms with children who have listened to quite complicated sermons, and they've come out and they've been able to tell me what they've been talking about, and God's talking to them at all times as well. And so part of that is during the service, but then also after, like, what does it look like to kind of debrief with your children about what happened in the service, what happened, and recognizing that experiences might be different. So one child may have not heard anything because it was boring, or another child may be like, well, I really loved that song because it made me feel like I could be excited about God because it was a fast song and I could move my body. And a parent can be like, well, actually, this bit I found really relevant. And you can do that when you're walking home or when you're in the car.
And let's just name it that if your child has been in a group or like a different, been somewhere else during the service, as a parent, what do we say when we pick them up? All of us. I do it too. I either say, what did you do today? Did you have a nice time? Or what did you learn today?
Yeah.
And the response you always get, and I know it's not just me because I can hear all the other children around, is, I don't know. I can't remember. I ate a biscuit. We played a game. And you can sort of see the despair in the poor, lovely volunteers who've been like pouring into these children of, are you serious? We did loads of stuff today. How can you only remember that we ate a biscuit? And I just think there is so much more we can get from that. We don't actually want to know like which Bible story or which Bible passage they were looking at just to have the information. I want to know how they connected with God, or did they learn something new that they found really challenging or really encouraging? Have they got an action that God's given them to do during the week? Did they catch anything? Did they share anything with God? And they're their own people. They don't have to tell me that. Of course they don't. But I found having a few questions and a few tricks up my sleeve helps. So we've got a little postcard. We do love a postcard here at Parenting for Faith. So we'll pop a link to that and you can download it. But it's got a suggestion of 3 things that you can do after the service.
The first one is about creating a window into your experience. So being able to verbalize what has been going on in your mind whilst you were listening to the sermon, for example, or what happened to you in worship, how you are feeling. And that can take a little bit of practice as adults as well, of actually, oh, okay, what did happen? How was I feeling? And being able to verbalize, the appropriate parts of it. But you're creating a window into what it looks like or feels like to you to meet with God in a church service when you're hearing about the Bible, or you're sitting listening to somebody, or you're singing. So being able to create a window into your experience is the first one.
And I love that, because it can feel a bit self-centered or a bit weird. You feel like you should be focused on your child, but they learn so much from you creating a window for them. I heard something a while back that said, instead of, when you pick your kid up from school, instead of saying, how was your day? Because it's the same problem, isn't it? They just tell you what they ate for lunch, or like one thing or nothing. The suggestion was, talk about your day. Tell them how your day has been, and something that you found interesting and something that you found hard. And then very often they will open up and say, I've had something hard happen today as well, or this interested me, or that's funny because I also had potato for lunch, or whatever it might be. And it sort of unlocks a deeper conversation. And I think it's the same with church. We sort of need to model to them first what sort of things we can talk about and give them ideas of what to say. Otherwise, they're just stuck. I don't know what you want me to say. And I can't really remember. So it's tricky. So yeah, love that. So firstly, create a window into your own experience. Secondly, ask some questions that help them explore their experience. So open questions that focus on connection. Things like, was there any part of the service where you felt especially close to God today? I've never thought about that Bible verse like that. You know how sometimes they come out with a little memory verse or a craft with a Bible verse on? I've never really thought about that Bible verse. What did you think? Is that new to you, or have you heard that lots of times before? Is there anything still buzzing in your brain from your group today? And we've got 20 questions, so you can change it up, so you're not always asking the same ones. They're going to pop up on Instagram and Facebook this week, and they're on our website as well, if you want to save those in your phone or put them in the door of the car or whatever, so you're not stuck. Because I know what it's like. Your mind just goes blank, doesn't it?
Yeah. And children are really good at asking questions, and us adults are pretty terrible. So it's good to learn. We can learn from them too. And then the third one is helping children join the dots from what happened on a Sunday in a church service to the rest of life. So it's kind of that remembering that Sunday is a part of the faith of everyday life. So was there maybe a song that they liked or enjoyed in their group, or in adult church, and then you can search for that and listen to it at home? Or was there something that they're a bit confused about? So that might happen with children, but also with teenagers. Was there something that they maybe disagreed with and they wanted to talk about it more? And you can kind of take that with you for the rest of the week. Be like, oh, well, let's research that. Is that actually what happened? Or let's look at that story in our Bible that we have at our house and look at it a bit more. Or was there someone that God had, that might have been catching from God? Was there someone who God gave them to talk to or help that week? And just make it part of every day, because it's not just a standalone event. Church isn't a standalone event. It kind of weaves into the rest of what their faith is like throughout the week.
Yeah, really helpful. And yeah, I hope that sparks some ideas. I just wanted to end with a little encouragement that you don't have to use all these ideas every week. I do not go through this process with each of my 4 children before, during and after church every single week. But if something has resonated with you, if it sparks something in you, pick one idea and try it this week. Maybe grab that postcard or those questions if you think your mind's going to go blank. But just try one thing this week and see how it shifts things. See what conversations it opens up. See what connection opportunities there are. It's something to play around with. It's something to have fun with. It's not more pressure. But we really hope it's been useful to you. If it has, do share it with other people in your church, because then you can nick their questions as well. Like as they're framing stuff in church and they're asking their kids questions after church, you'll think, oh yeah, nice one. I'll borrow that. So do share it with other people as well.
And our questions to spark an interesting conversation this week is, which parts of church could you not do if God was not real? So thinking about all the parts of church service, which ones couldn't you do if God wasn't real? And if that question's too hard, then we can do an easier question. What's the one thing that you really appreciate about church?
We really hope you've enjoyed this episode today. As I said, do share it with someone else if it's helped you. It's totally free for you to listen to on all sorts of podcast platforms because of the generosity of so many of you who pay in just a tiny bit each month to be a friend of Parenting for Faith. From £2 a month, or if you're able to give a little bit more, £5, £10, that enables us to do things like keep this podcast going and create all the other resources and things that we do. And just for Parenting for Faith to continue to keep equipping and encouraging parents and carers. So if you already do that, thank you so much. If you'd like to start doing that, there is a link in the show notes. We will be back next week. I'm talking to Tim Challies. It sounds weird in an English accent, all the way from Canada. He is one of the very original Christian bloggers. He's been blogging almost daily for over 20 years. And he's written a brilliant new book for children all about what church and faith looks like in different parts of the globe. So make sure that you're subscribed or following so that you can hear that. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.